Hey, I'm Dr. Mike Roussel, and welcome to this installment of Ask Dr. Mike. We're here at CrossFit Lionheart in State College, Pennsylvania, and I'm with my friend, training partner, and certified strength and conditioning specialist, Tom Bumgardner. And we're going to answer a question from our support desk saying that this person works at their desk all day and is wondering about some warm-ups and activation things that they could do to get ready before they hit the gym. So I think it's really common, and this is something that I suffer from as well, is that when you're at a desk all day, you really get stiffened up. And then you want to go hit the gym or work out, and you know, there are just some things that you should do to kind of remove all that horrible desk sitting from your body. And you know, what they say, like sitting, it's as bad as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So Todd's going to show us some things that you can do to try to negate the negative effects of sitting at your desk all day. So when you hit the gym, you can hit the gym injury-free. So what are some things that we're going to do?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that you want to think about before we start designing a warm-up for people that sit at their desk all day is what happens when you sit at their desk all day. So as we sit there, the front of our body, hip flexors, quads, all get pretty tight, right? So we want to work on loosening those up and making them more mobile. Also, shoulders slump, so our upper traps, these muscles turn into slings, these muscles get really short, and we get into that hunch posture. So basically the warm-up for the desk sitter is correcting all these things. So making our hips able to extend and pulling our shoulders back, okay? So those are the things we're gonna work on.
Okay, so what are we gonna do first?
We're gonna start with some soft tissue work. So what that means is, you know, typically people think of this as foam rolling, but for Dr. Mike, being the exercise enthusiast that he is, he does a lot of foam rolling and stuff, and it might not be enough for him to change his tissue structure now. So we need something that's a little bit more rigid. So what we're gonna do.
So that could be if you sit a lot. Sure. Or if you foam roll a good deal, you might need something a little bit more aggressive.
Absolutely.
Than foam roll.
Yeah, so we brought in lacrosse ball and softball. Okay. So what we're gonna start by doing is the soft tissue work itself. And we're gonna start with those areas that are typically gonna get shortened and the tissue quality in those areas, it diminishes. Okay. So we're gonna start with our Dr. Mike's hip flexors. We're gonna take the softball and we're gonna get them, work them in right here in the front of the hip, into the crease of the hip, and he's gonna sit in there. Typically what I like is 2 minutes, but for demonstration's sake, we're gonna cut it down a little bit just to kind of show you.
Okay. So is this on the ground?
This is gonna be on the ground, you're gonna lay face down. Okay. So we got Dr. Mike down here. He's gonna go ahead and put the softball right in the crease of his hips. And what I want to do is just to sit there and actually relax into the ball. He can move around if he'd like, but what I typically like people to do is just find a spot that gives a relative amount of discomfort and to just sit on it and breathe in this area.
It's relative. That's it. It's a little more than
it could be an extreme amount of discomfort.
And this is like, make sure this is not your pelvis bone.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to be on. You don't want to be on bone. You want to be right in the soft tissue. And this is graded for the individual. Some people, you're going to need a softball. Some people will be just fine with the foam roller. But I wanted to show the softball because most people are familiar with foam rollers. But those of us that need a little more, a more aggressive implement, it's easy to use a softball.
So you don't have to move around. You can move around.
You can. I typically, what I've found most effective is just to find the spots that are troublesome and sit on there for just 2 minutes and let it relax. There's some key points throughout the body that typically work very well with this, and the hip flexors is one of them. So what we're going to do now are take care of the pecs and the traps. What you're going to need, you can do this in a doorway if you have a doorway, or you can do it at the gym on a squat rack. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Dr. Mike take this ball and pin it into the squat rack with his upper trap muscle. So he's going to go ahead and keep his spine nice and flat. Now from here, he's just going to use his weight and push into the squat rack. Good. There's going to be a tendency you want to feel to kind of shrug your shoulder into the ball. Don't do that. Just use the force of your weight to put pressure on the ball and into the muscle. Same thing, you can move here or you can just sit on a spot that feels uncomfortable.
And so how long is this another 2 minutes?
Yeah, I like 2 minutes for most of these spots.
Each side?
Yeah, so if you want to come in and do like a general foam roll, and just kind of warm everything up, that's fine. But then when you really want to make a structural change, it takes a little bit more of a load on the tissue. So
because I think it's probably all relative then as well to how long you're sitting. You know,
sure.
I mean, if you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours, right now, you know, so far we're looking at 6 minutes of foam rolling or of soft tissue work. So
that's a good point. I mean, what the common analogy is, you're not going to correct 24 hours of bad habits with 1 hour of a good one. So
yeah,
this is why it takes a little bit more intense work, and also it takes a higher volume of work. So this could be stuff that you're doing at home, you're doing all the time.
That's what I was going to say. Is it better, or for some people, are they going to need to do this more than just before they go to the gym? Like if you can break up your day and do a little bit of soft tissue work, either just on your hips or your traps or one or the other, is it going to help that much more?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. I'm also a massage therapist, and I have my clients do homework all the time. So, you know, they come and see me for an hour once a week or once a month, something like that. Yeah. But if you want everything to stick and you want your body to continue to improve, you got to do the homework.
Yeah.
So it's you could do this multiple times a day if you want. Now we're going to work on the pecs.
Okay.
So what I'm going to have you do is essentially the same thing. He's going to take the lacrosse ball, pin it to the squat rack with his pec. Now what you want to do is get right up here towards the crease of the shoulder, and you want to sit in there. So what I'm going to have Dr. Mike do is just go ahead and raise your arm straight up. Good. Back down. Take it behind your head. There you go. Behind your back. Good. Good. Go ahead and press straight out. Good. Pull back like you're rowing. Good. Press overhead. My good friend Jim Smith of Diesel Strength and Conditioning introduced me to this one, and it works wonders for people with really rolled in shoulders with a kyphotic posture.
Yeah. So it's basically, so you're getting that pressure point, so to speak, and then working the muscle through a range of motion.
The movement helps because well, those muscles kind of stabilize your shoulder and scapula, so moving them helps them get out of that locked position.
So then, so we're each side, how long is that?
2 minutes.
I don't know if I could do that for 2 minutes.
Exactly, 2 minutes. For all of these individual points that we're holding, it's going to be 2 minutes per side.
Okay.
So what I'm going to have
This is kind of like, this is bonus?
Yeah, this is bonus material, you're getting extra. So go ahead and kick your shoes off real quick.
I got clean socks.
I was going to say, you don't have your religious socks on, dude.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm assuming I'm just...
Yeah, so we're going to work the plantar fascia on Dr. Mike's feet just with the lacrosse ball. I actually like a golf ball more for this, but lacrosse balls are usually available at gyms, baseballs. So what we're doing is loosening up the plantar fascia, which will actually have an effect the whole way up the chain from the calves up to the low back. So what Dr. Mike is going to do is just get on there, put some good pressure on as much as he can stand, and roll for 2 minutes a foot.
This seems like something you could do
all the time.
At the end of the day.
I mean, you could keep a golf ball or lacrosse ball at your desk, kick your shoes off, and roll your feet throughout the day, and it'd be a positive thing.
So how is that someone who's sitting at their desk all day? How does that make a difference?
Well, I mean, as you sit there, not only do your hamstrings get tight, your hip flexors get tight, but your calves and your ankles start to lock up and get tight too. So this releasing the plantar fascia by putting some pressure on with the lacrosse ball actually affects all of those muscles up the chain.
So it loosens you kind of all the way up.
Absolutely.
Because I know that oftentimes with people, we've talked before in some other videos about squatting, that like ankle mobility, like people who sit around all day can have decreased ankle mobility, and that can impact how deep you're squatting. Is that something that's going to help
directly
with ankle mobility?
Directly affects your ankle mobility, absolutely.
Okay.
Calves are pretty fun too. So go ahead and grab your softball there. And what I want you to do is go ahead and just sit down on your butt. Squeeze that softball between your knee and your hamstring, or between your hamstring and your calf. And then grab low around your ankle and pull them together. Good. So as you're getting in there, you're putting a lot of pressure on the soft tissue and you're getting a release. Same thing, you're going to do this for like 2 minutes. And you can go ahead and incorporate some ankle movement with this. You can use the lacrosse.
And is this like you should move it, how high should this be? Like up?
You can work it down. So start at the top and then just work it from knee towards ankle. Good, and get some ankle movement in there.
Now, is that giving us the same effect, like with the pec when we were moving our arm through the range of motion?
Okay. Good. So you can just flex and extend your foot. You can move it in circles, any of those things. Go ahead and move down a little bit lower. So we want to affect all those muscles on the back of our calf. So typically the gastroc, the soleus, are where people see a lot of binding and a lot of discomfort from sitting.
Gastroc being the high part of your calf, soleus being kind of the low part.
So now we're going to go into thoracic mobility. So as we sit at the desk, we extend our arms in front of us at the keyboard all day, and we sit here. What happens is our thoracic spine starts to lock up.
Which is?
So that's from your neck, the base of your neck, to the middle of your back. This is your thoracic spine. So as you sit here, you do these things, this starts to get very rigid. So as this gets rigid, it affects the way our shoulder blades move. And as it affects the way our shoulder blades move, it affects how everything functions at the shoulder and at the neck. Okay, so making the thoracic spine more mobile is going to improve the function of our shoulders and take strain off of our neck, which people at the desk usually typically have
a big thing. Okay.
So what we're going to do is just a thoracic extension rotation drill. Okay, so what I'm going to have Dr. Mike do is go ahead and get on all fours on the ground. Go ahead and point your toes. Good. And rock your butt back under your heels. Good. So when we do these thoracic mobility drills, it's important that we take our lumbar spine out of the movement. So if this is at all extended, you're going to get more movement out of your lumbar spine than you want. So in this position, I know typically you're going to hear, keep your lumbar spine neutral, keep it flat. In this position, it's okay for this to round, okay? So what we're going to have Dr. Mike do now is go ahead and put this elbow on the ground, elbow and forearm, and take your hand and put it directly under your eyes. Out here a little bit more, good. So what this does is puts the shoulder in a good position for stability so we can allow the thoracic spine to move, okay? So from here what he's going to do is we're going to create a little tension in this shoulder, and he's going to dial his hand into the ground there. So notice that his arm didn't actually move, he just turned it out to create some tension up his arm. So I'm sure you noticed that as he did that, all the muscles in his forearm, up through his triceps, up into his shoulder contracted. We want that. He's going to take this arm and put it on the small of his back. Right like that, good. Can you get up a little farther? Is that all you got? Okay, good. Now,
is that all you got?
he's going to start, so our body, our movement is directed by where we put our eyes most often, right? It's an evolutionary concept. So he's going to go ahead and start by looking this way, good. He's going to turn his neck that way, and now he's going to rotate that way, just in his upper back, good. Go ahead and rotate.
Like this way?
Yep, right like that, good. Nice and smooth, and with breath, good. And back down, he's going to go under, and start with his eyes, his chin, then he's going to rotate this way. Notice how we're not getting any movement out of the hips or lumbar spine, it's all coming up here. So he's going to
Now, is my weight on my shoulder or is my weight back on my hips?
You can keep it on your hips. We're just creating tension here. Good, so nice and smooth the rotation. You don't want to make this a jerky or stiff movement, and you don't want to try to force the end range of motion, because then it kind of gives you a signal to the body that it's not really safe and it needs to protect itself, so you'll become more rigid. So nice and smooth with even breaths. Good. This is good to do anywhere from 5 to 8 reps, a few sets of it. Go ahead and let's see the other side, Dr. Mike. Good. And it's very common to have different levels of mobility from side to side. So notice he gets a little bit more going this way than he did the other way. Starting with his eyes, his chin and his neck, and then rotating his upper back. Good. Again, 5 to 8 reps, a few sets. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to work down the chain to the hips, and we're going to do something called the Isohold Lunge. Now what this is going to do is actually stretch. It's going to stretch our hip flexors and our quads and activate our glutes, our hamstrings, and the muscles on the back of our body, which kind of get shut off as we sit on them all day. Okay, so what we're going to have Dr. Mike do is go into a lunge position. Good. Now what I want you to do is sink into the bottom position of the lunge. Good. That's a good position. Now notice how his knee stays off the ground. Go ahead and get your hands off your legs. And what he's going to do is pull with this hamstring, pull his hips forward with this hamstring, and squeeze this glute. Good. And he's just going to hold this position. It's this simple. This is all you have to do.
And this is like an active movement. You're not just like
you're not just sagging into it. You're staying contracted with the front hamstring and the back glute.
I can feel it because my leg is twitching.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to wake you up. It's not only going to give you some mobility there, but it's going to get your central nervous system fired up to do some work. Now, the easiest thing to do to make this work for you is just to concentrate on your breathing. Nice and low and in your belly, and stay nice and tall with your spine. So nice and good alignment, and keep pulling right there. Good.
And then so starting out 15 seconds each leg,
right.
2 or 3 sets?
Yeah, 2 or 3 sets. The total time, like how I like to structure with people that are starting out, we want to work the total time up to a minute, okay? So if we start out with, you can do 2 sets of 15 seconds, you get 30, okay? Well then we'll try to add another set of 15 seconds until you can work up to doing it for a minute continuously. Okay. So what we can do now is actually get the shoulders working a little bit more, Okay. So, and the easiest way to do that, honestly, is to just do a push-up. So what we're gonna do is, I know we just loosened up these muscles, but what we can do with a push-up is actually activate the muscles around our shoulder blades that stabilize our shoulders, which kind of get turned off during the day while we work. Okay. So what I'm gonna have Dr. Mike do is get in the up push-up position. He's gonna go ahead and dial his hands, so he's gonna torque them out. Good, beautiful. Now from here, what we're gonna concentrate on is really using our shoulder blades in both directions. So as he goes to the ground, he's gonna feel like he's pulling himself down, and even as he presses himself back up to the top position, I want him to feel like he's pulling himself down. So go ahead, pull yourself down to the bottom position. As you press up, I want you to feel like you're pulling with your shoulder blades too. Notice how his shoulder blades move really well. Go ahead and go down, pulling down, and as he presses back up, he's pulling still. What this is going to do is activate all those muscles around your shoulder blades and get them working. Go ahead. Okay. Notice how the spine stays nice and long.
So how many reps should we do with this?
Anywhere from 5 to 10, a few sets.
All right. You should elevate your upper body, not go on your knees.
Right. It's a much different pattern if you go into your knees, and it works much better if you'd rather just stay in a standing position and just elevate your upper body.
Okay. Good to know. All right. So then, how much time should someone be expecting to commit to their warm-up? Like everything that we just went through. But how much time should that take?
10 to 15 minutes. I mean, you should spend a solid 10 to 15 minutes getting your body ready to work. I mean, it's been dormant all day. You've been sitting at your desk, you've been typing. It's not ready to go right away.
And so this is going to be something that you probably break a sweat doing?
Absolutely.
I'm guessing, like after you're doing the ISO.
I mean, you know, that's why it's called a warm-up, right? So you want to elevate your body temperature because enzymatically you get and produce more energy. And then also, that's what gets tissues ready to go. It makes them more supple.
And one of the things that we didn't have in this was static stretching.
Right.
So we're not doing static stretching.
I'm not a big fan. I don't think that it accomplishes as much as these kind of movements do to get you ready to work.
Okay. So let's just wrap up for everybody exactly what we did, kind of the sequence of the warm-up.
Sure. So we started with the hip flexors and the softball, 2 minutes. We moved on to the traps with the lacrosse ball, 2 minutes. Pecs with the lacrosse ball, 2 minutes. And as like the bonus soft tissue feature, we went in with the feet and the lacrosse ball, again, 2 minutes. And then worked into the calves with the softball again for 2 minutes. After that, we moved on to thoracic mobility to improve the function of the shoulder and keep the neck safe. Then we went into the Isohold Lunge to improve the flexibility of our quads and hip flexors and also activate our posterior chain. And we finished with push-ups to train shoulder stability before we get working.
All right. So there you go. So if you're like me, you do a lot of desk work, and you really want to be ready to go either before your workout or even some things that you can do during the day to help with the the negative effects of sitting kind of hunched over all day at your desk, that's what you should do.
Absolutely.
So if you have any questions about this for myself or for Todd, please post them below the video either at YouTube or at my site at microcell.com. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and come back often as we have a new Ask Dr. Mike video every Friday. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.